This is the Streamdock. Yes, dock, not deck. You might think it's a cheap clone of the infamous Elgato Stream Deck, but you would be mistaken. I'm not saying it's perfect, but even with its imperfections, it has exceeded my expectations and managed to get a permanent spot on my desk. In fact, I loved it so much that I ended up buying the other version, which features 15 keys and an info display bar. Macro pads and Stream Decks can transform your workspace and can make repetitive tasks a lot less stressful. Other than the Loop Deck, there aren't any other devices that can give the Elgato a run for its money. These two devices, even with a combined price of about $80, might just do it. We'll check what's in the box, how to set it up, a few tips and tricks, things that I like and things that I disliked. Stick around. For a product that cost under $40, the unboxing experience is very encouraging. Everything is wrapped neatly, and although not the absolute bleeding edge presentation, it feels a lot more expensive than the paid price. Besides the device, you also get a nice braided USB-C cable and an instruction manual with the software download link. Through the software, we can establish they're called the MBox N3 E and Streamdock 293S. When picking it up for the first time, I actually liked the way it felt in the hand. It's not the best build that I have ever seen, but it's close. In fact, it feels just as good as the Elgato minus a little bit of weight. Typical of this type of devices, with the exception of the Loop Deck, which is the most premium device build-wise. But Loop Deck has a major flaw, and that is the absence of the physical buttons. Check my review on it here. It's made entirely out of plastic, lightweight, no rough edges, and the device sticks well to the base. The button click feels good with no weird sounds, and the LCD resolution is surprisingly good, and also feels very well made. It measures at 13 by 8 centimeters or 5 by 3 inches, and the stand props it up to an angle of 45 degrees. The buttons are possibly the best thing about the whole device, and the knobs have a tactile feedback when turning and feel precise and fun to play with. The only exception are the 3 buttons on the bottom on the N3S. They make what I can only describe as a cheap sounding button click and don't particularly feel well built. They're not absolutely terrible, but it's almost like they raised the bar on the build quality and forgot to include these buttons here. You might be surprised to know this, but the click on the LCD is better than the Elgato Stream Deck. The press feels uniform and the whole LCD moves in one smooth motion versus the Elgato that feels a little bit wobbly when clicked, probably due to the fact that the LCDs are a lot smaller on the Streamdock, which, as you will find out shortly, is actually really a good thing. If you plan on using it flat, you can remove the back stand with the help of a 90 degrees USB-C adapter and can lay it flat on its back. I did buy the adapter separately, and although it doesn't seem like a fit at first, but it actually works really good with minimal to no wobble. There's a little bit of an optical illusion going on here. It seems that the N3 is smaller than the 293S due to the layout of the buttons. But when you put them side by side, they're actually identical in size. First thing you want to do is to download the software. Now, I have tested it in a sandbox environment prior to installing it on my main PC, and it seemed to behave just like any other software. No red flags despite the sketchy URL. The software takes a huge inspiration from the Elgato software. It's almost identical in many ways. It's a good thing though, because it allowed me to navigate through it faster. It even behaves like an Elgato device when plugged into a PC. Even if connected to a permanent power source, it will only show icons if it can communicate with the software, meaning it's always synced with your PC. You can do exactly, and to my knowledge, everything you can do on a Stream Deck. Hotkeys, custom images, up to 3 clicks per button, pages, scenes, icons, websites, adjusting button text, weather, application, boot up screen, sleep timer, and so on. From what I have seen, there's no difference whatsoever compared to the Elgato. You even have a marketplace where you can download ready-made plugins and icons. By default, it comes with some ready-made buttons, but I never actually use them, and in my experience, they tend to serve as a demo to what you can actually do with it. The input is instantaneous, despite the fact that the action happens upon the release of the button rather than when pressing it. There's no lag or stutter. The only exception is a tiny lag when switching between pages from time to time. There's a lot to like about this device since it shares a lot of its features with the Elgato Streamdeck. But my top two features has to be dynamic mode. In other words, the software detects what's on your screen and changes the set of shortcuts that you previously assigned to fit that particular program you're working on, saving you additional seconds switching by using the physical keys. For example, when I use DaVinci Resolve, I want this set of shortcuts to help speed the editing process. And with dynamic mode, once I open DaVinci, the Streamdock switches automatically to those set of shortcuts. It sounds simple, but it's extremely useful and seamless. After all, the device is meant to shave off seconds off your workload. And with this small action, it feels like the device can read your mind. And the second one is the small buttons. Bigger is not always better. In this case, it's absolutely true. Notice how the buttons on both the N3E and the 293S are actually smaller than that of the Streamdeck. At first, it might seem like a con, especially if you have it sitting at a distance, but it's not the case for editing. I find it far more convenient and less stressful on the hands and fingers when you have to move less, especially when you can access all the buttons without moving your wrist, and can do it by feeling it rather than touching it. In fact, the main reason why I'm not a fan of the Loupedeck is because it's very difficult or almost impossible to operate by feeling and have to resort to keeping your fingers close and looking at it every time you want to click a button, which is extremely counterproductive. And although this is probably unintentional and is done to cut cost on materials by keeping the device smaller, it actually worked in its favor. Like I said earlier, it's not perfect and it does have some downsides, but nothing too dramatic. The first one is brightness. They're both lower in brightness versus the Elgato Streamdeck Plus. Now, this isn't a deal breaker, nor does it really affect the functionality, but it's a bit of a letdown since the device nails almost everything, including the buttons. And in my opinion, the buttons are actually better than that of the Streamdeck. On the N3 and the 293S, the clicks are not only uniformed and identical, but they also feel right, meaning they click in a straightforward motion. I say the brightness is a letdown because the button clicks are actually harder to achieve on a hardware level versus just adding a bunch of LEDs. The second one is the inability to add a button plus mouse combo, which is a software limitation rather than hardware. This is found even on the Elgato Streamdeck, which is a big deal for me because I tend to use the control plus mouse scroll to zoom in and out of timelines. And the ability to assign action to a knob or button makes editing or browsing the web much easier. I'm able to do that on the much cheaper macro pad that I purchased for just $27, but unable to do it on the more expensive devices. It's not the end of the road though, and there's ways around it. Some softwares will allow you to assign hotkeys and change the zoom action without relying on the mouse scroll wheel, but it's program dependent and it's not bulletproof. From the small research that I have done, it seems that the MBox is the main manufacturer of these devices, and it gets sold to other companies who end up slapping their logos on it and reselling it. No big deal, as we have seen Razer doing the same thing with Loupedeck. The only strange thing here is it actually costs more to buy from the manufacturer than buying it from the resellers. None of this stuff affects the quality or use, but I thought I would point this out to eliminate confusion, as you might come across the same device with different logos. You can skip all that by using the link in the description I usually update links regularly for the best price available, and I will also leave some discount codes if I manage to find some. Whether you're an editor, streamer, gamer, power user, or even an average PC or Mac user, this box of shortcuts will give you an edge, speed up your work, and make it a little bit more enjoyable. It doesn't sound like a lot, but repetitive small actions can build up over time, which translates to a huge time saving if you can manage to circumvent it. I can't say much on the longevity of the product as I have just started using it, but from what I have seen so far, it's awesome. The best place you can buy it from right now is AliExpress, as Amazon resellers are going ham with the prices, charging more than double what it sells for. Consider checking my voiceover playlist if you've enjoyed this video. That's all for today. I'll catch you in the next one.